All right, with Moriah Doepken, Co-op is the short film played at the LGBTQ plus film festival. It's a film from Chapman University, correct?
Yeah.
Was this your thesis film?
Yes, this was my graduate thesis film from last year.
How'd you do? Did you get an A?
Yeah, I graduated. They gave me the diploma, so I did all right, I think.
So great film. We've shown quite a few films from Chapman University. Tell people where that is.
Chapman is down in Orange, California, in the Orange County.
Okay.
But yeah, Dodge College of Film
OC.
and Media Arts. Yep, OC.
Yeah.
So
So it's in the Hollywood area, I guess.
yes, a little bit south, but yes, very much still in the area.
So tell me about this film, Fathers and Sons, like generation losing generation behind. Obviously, a dad having to deal with his having it's machismo, which is about being it's like masculinity, I guess, right?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, no, I had this idea of because I like, classic westerns. So I had this idea of like, what if, the sheriff, the Gary Coopers, the John Waynes, like, what does their life look like after they're done, saving
Yeah.
the town? And that kind of, in a modern setting turned into this. And I worked with Jeffrey Hein, who wrote the script, and we came up with this story. And it sounds weird to say, like, I like talking about toxic masculinity, but it's a theme that I really enjoy looking into. So that was obviously a huge thing for us to kind of explore with this for sure.
So it's almost like if John Wayne had a gay son in a sense.
Yeah, and you stick him here where, he's a man kind of lost in time. He's a relic of a time that has passed. The future is here, and he's not as accepting as he maybe should be about that.
Yeah, and so obviously it's a very common we see it every day in politics. So basically, but tell me why you're interested in toxic masculinity. Like, why do you think you're so curious about exploring those themes in films and art?
Uh, I find it very interesting because you see it change a lot throughout the depictions change a lot throughout the history of film, I think, in terms of the man who saves the day, kind of like I was talking about with, the old westerns and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of complexity to men that men themselves kind of prohibit exploring a lot of times with these depictions. And I've just read a lot of literature and seen a lot of films that have really compelling stories featuring around this. And my undergrad English literature thesis was about toxic masculinity, and so it's just been something been very interested in, because I think the more you talk about it and the more you show either positive or negative depictions, I think it can open up conversations about that.
Well, fathers and sons thematic in storylines and film is probably it's been done. Let's just say it's been done a couple times,
Yeah,
right?
once or twice. I think I've seen a thing or two.
And there's something interesting about this perception about like from someone like myself who was a son and has a son who there's this situation where you see a lot of yourself in your child and you want your child to be like you in a sense. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
straight, but then when they're not, like in this case in this film, it's very difficult for that father to handle. I know I'm being very obvious, of course,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
basically, but it's just something that needs to like for me, it's just something that that happened with my father. My father who he didn't know who I was, and he had a real hard time with that.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, and thankfully, I grew up in a very loving household that never had that kind of problem. But obviously, I've seen friends go through that.
Yeah.
It is everywhere that you look, and there is, especially I think for men, there's a lot of expectations about, when the father leaves or the father gets too old, like you have to be the man of the house, like you have to step up, you have to do these things, and so yeah, it carries on generation to generation all the time.
And then so then this situation in this film where the son's like the father needs help, and it's like that pride, that ego where you don't want help, but he
Yeah.
needs it, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of his arc too, the dad's arc in the film too, where like he has to accept that he needs help.
Yes. Yeah. That's another thing. And I think, you know, it's very hard, but I think there's also a lot of ways that people can ask for help without asking for help, which is one of the things that we kind of show in this film. That people who are hesitant to ask for help might find other ways to kind of soothe their own ego by being like, "Oh, I'm not really asking for help, but since you're here, I guess you might as well." And then they won't admit it, but they are asking for help in that sense.
Yeah, and you showed that both the characters in very vulnerable states, I guess, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and there's another interesting aspect in the film where like this is only an 18-minute film, but there's a lot of little nuggets going back home, right? Where like in like sleeping in the same home that you slept in as a child. There's like I was just talking about this today, even like forgetting that I was talking to you about it, but maybe I subconsciously I did, where like there's something really freaky about going back home after you've lived after you set up a whole new life for yourself and then going back to this to your like childhood. Like it's really weird. It's a weird feeling.
Yeah, yes, because everybody changes as they grow, and so to go back to a location where you're like, oh, this is not who I am anymore, um, it can be kind of a confrontation for yourself in a sense, I guess.
All right, so tell me, so you told me that you had this idea, then you wrote it with Jeffrey. So was Jeffrey's from the school as well?
Yes, he was in the screenwriting program, and we had worked together 2 years before. During our first year, he had written a project that I had directed, and I really liked working with him. And we had talked. That film also had themes of toxic masculinity. I promise I'm not like one note only, but
Well, no, listen, every Spielberg film is about fathers and sons.
you
So,
know what? I guess that's true. But yeah, so I had talked with him very early on my first year, which the directing program was 3 years. I think they just changed it to 2 years, but mine was three. And I knew that I really liked collaborating, and I knew that I working with a writer, they would have a lot more ideas than if it was just me trying to do everything myself.
mhm.
And so I really liked working with him. I really liked how he wrote dialogue, the themes that we had kind of bonded over talking about. And so when I had this idea and it was time for thesis, I was like, well, I know I need to go ask Jeff. So reached out, and yeah, we worked on it for I think about a year. Like the script took about a year. A lot of different drafts, workshopping in classes, outside class, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's amazing.
Wow. And then so like, and so you do you think you're going to work with him again?
Oh, I would love to. I mean, I would like to think he would like to work with me again. But yeah, absolutely, he's amazing. So
Oh, so then you have to pitch it to your class. How does it work where you get a green light to make the film?
um so basically, I mean, you have to show them the script, show them the breakdown, show them how you're going to feasibly do this. You do get a budget from the school. We had to fundraise more just because uh I use this film as a way to kind of challenge myself and give myself things that I had never done before, like working with animals, working with prop weapons, working with like stunt falls and like fight choreography, although the fight is very short. um so in putting these kind of obstacles for myself, it did raise raise the budget a little bit. So we fundraised a little bit, but then you just present all of that to the school. They ask you a billion questions. You go back and forth with them through a lot of different presentations, and then eventually you get the green light to go. So
So you got the green light to go, and then so everybody, the crew, everybody, your DP, everybody's from the school.
yeah, basically all of like the key crew is
Okay.
from the school, which Jeffrey at the time he had already graduated, because the screenwriting program was 2 years. So he actually like came back, and he didn't have to do it, but he did. But then yeah, Chloe Prawl, my amazing DP, my sound designer, producer, production designer, editor, those were all Chapman students who this was their thesis as well. So it was our thesis, not just like mine.
Gotcha. All right,
Yeah.
so tell me about like setting the film up. How did you choose your cinematographer?
So Chloe, I had seen her work from other student projects that we had worked on,
Mhm.
and then I basically just kind of created like a little pitch deck and showed her, paintings by Maynard Dixon, who he's like one of my favorite artists. I had compiled a bunch of shots from various movies that I wanted to pull inspiration from. I kind of walked through like the general feel that I was going for. She kind of pitched me some things, and I was like, absolutely, we went anamorphic for this, and uh, yeah. So we just kind of pitched to each other, saw that it was going to be a really good fit, and we were off.
So how did you like, did you storyboard things? Did you have a shot list? Like what was the setup?
I made my my shot lists aren't, or I mean, my storyboards are not very artistic. They convey some stuff though. So I had storyboards, and then yeah, we broke down. We sat together for I think we like 4 hours straight, just like um, shot list, talked about it, kind of tweaked the storyboards here and there where we knew it was going to be, a little bit more feasible. And then on the day of shooting, we'd go through that, but then we kind of tweak, you tweak on set as you go, and you realize, oh, we don't necessarily need this. It'd be cool if we did this. Um, Although with the chickens, it was just, I don't know, follow them, see what they do,
Yeah.
see where they go. All right, move over here real quick. Okay, they're gonna be over here. All right, we're gonna move over here. So you can't really storyboard the chicken stuff, but
Gotcha. You
you can
mentioned
try.
that in your blog interview that yeah, you can't really direct chickens, I guess, right?
Yeah, you can write in the script all you want about what you want a chicken to do, but the chicken can't read that. The chicken's gonna do what a chicken wants to do. So, but for the most part, they did pretty much what we wanted.
So speaking of that, there's certain like the locations, obviously the house, the chicken coop, the farm, the bar scenes, very key moment in your film. Where'd you get your locations? You shot in California, right?
Yes, we did. So the house and the bar were just in the LA area, which funnily enough, the bar was like a block from one of my old apartments that I was like, wait a second, I know the street. And then the chicken coop and the exterior of the house we shot in Redlands, so like an hour east of Chapman University. So we had to get like a special permit because it was kind of far away, and we had to shorten our days a little bit. But it we could not have created a better chicken coop if we had wanted. So it was ideal. It was perfect.
And then obviously your two performers, the father and son, they have great chemistry together. They seem like father. I'm assuming they're not, but they definitely pulled it off in the film. Where did you find them?
So I had a wonderful casting director, Claire Kaplan, shout out. And yeah, she sent out the call, and we got the auditions back. And what's funny is that Connor, who plays the son, Will, he actually auditioned for Landers, who's the bully in the bar. And he did a phenomenal job with his audition. But I was like, you know what? Call me crazy. I kind of want to see him as Will. But I didn't say anything. And then I showed his audition to my one of my professors, and she was like, call me crazy, but I kind of want to see him as Will. And I was like, okay. So we sent that to him. We had him read his will, and was like, okay, well, he's obviously perfect for this. And
That's
then,
fantastic. I love
yeah,
that.
I know it was.
Did he just apply for the project, or did your casting director thought like how did it all like he just did he cast for that role? He didn't cast for the lead?
No, yeah, he was in the suggested pile for the bully, and he had sent in his audition for that, and that's what he thought was like a better fit for him. And I also had my writer Jeff watch the auditions because I was like, you wrote the characters,
Yeah,
you know them better than I do. So I had him watch it too. And then when we saw Connor as Will, it was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And then watching Doug, who plays Lou, it was really funny because he sent it in his audition. And I remember watching it and being like, I kind of see a little bit of my grandfather in him. Not to
okay.
say like my grandfather's a homophobic guy or anything, but I really like the idea that immediately he was playing it as somebody that somebody could relate to.
Yeah,
And, he's not just playing it as a grumpy old man who doesn't
yeah,
have a heart.
yeah.
But yeah, Claire Kaplan found them, and then I had them do a scene together, and
Yeah.
it was perfect.
By the way, if you're comparing baby boomer cowboys, white male baby boomer cowboys, which they all are generally, his scale of being homophobic is probably on the low end scale,
Uh
compared
huh.
to
Yep.
others, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which makes the film, right? Not like he's not a antagonist. he's a guy that we root for. Like he's dealing with his emotions. He's afraid, but he's not. He's still confronting his fears and as best as he possibly can for someone his age.
Yeah, we knew kind of right away that we didn't want it to be like a story where Will comes out to his dad and the whole story is about
Yeah,
his dad coming to terms with it. In this film, Lou already knows. He's already come to terms with
yeah,
Will's sexuality. That is just kind of one of the pieces of the problem that the two of them have together.
yeah.
It's a lot more complicated than just that. And so yeah, Lou has a lot of self-reflecting to do in this film.
Well, I love like listen, we all make like gestures that we think are best for our loved ones, and sometimes our gestures are just completely off. And I like that in the bar scene where like he punches the bully or whatever. That's his gesture saying that I basically this is my son. I love my son. This is who he is. It's misguided. It's dumb, but that's like showing his love for his son.
Yeah, that was when I remember when Jeff like wrote that scene in and I read it. I was like, this is perfect because there are some people who watch this and probably will say like, oh, like good for him. But
Yeah.
then immediately you see Will's face and you're like, oh, that was not the right move. Or you have a lot of people that watch it and go, oh, why, Lou, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, because it's done with good intentions,
Yeah.
which is the part that kind of becomes a little bit grayer, a little bit harder to grapple with. Because it is ultimately from a place of love. It just is, yeah, done done
That's
completely the
well,
wrong way.
that's what stains your film, your short from other films because it's that nuance. It's that human, like because generally speaking, we're flawed. So even like so basically, like I said, sometimes we do things like give a present to a loved one or whatever like that, that it's just you miss the mark.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the sometimes it's the gesture that counts, even though it's dumb, right? So
Yeah. So yeah, that was fun. I really do love that moment because ultimately Lou kind of self sabotages this relationship, even though he was really trying to fix it.
yeah,
So
exactly. And so the when you're act the guy who plays the gentleman who plays the son, when he auditioned, did he have a mustache?
um
Connor.
I believe he did. Yeah, yeah.
Because there's something about him having a mustache that I don't know, it's like I'm reading too much into it, but like there's a cowboyish, like I got a mustache.
Yeah, that was one of the things
Yeah.
that because a lot the actors for the most part um wore pretty much their own clothes.
Okay.
So Doug, all of those blue plaid shirts that he wears throughout the whole film, those were all his. The work coveralls, all his. Um, but yeah, the fact that they both have mustaches leads me to believe that Will at one point looked in the mirror and was like, oh, I kind of see my father in this, but he decided to keep the mustache. So I think that
Yeah.
also says something. So
Or it's just like I said, or it's just a subconscious thing that
yeah,
he's not even aware of what is going on.
yeah.
So yeah, great little film. It's almost like it's one of those things where you want more because it's so good. Like you just want to see what's going to happen next.
Thank you. Yeah, that was kind of a hope. It definitely leave it open so the audience can imagine what this next chapter is because the story of this fractured relationship is definitely not over. But I like to let the viewer decide maybe what that next step looks like for them.
So you're alluding to the some of the post production, the editors, your sound designer from the school. Tell me about that. The post production was everything in the script in the final cut. Did you guys like leave some scenes out? I'm just curious about that.
there were some uh there were some smaller scenes that were cut. There's one where it it's only the first 10 seconds made it into the final film, but it's where Will walks in, closes the door, and he puts his hand on his desk. It is a very short little shot. But in the script, he walks over and he lights a cigarette and he looks out the window and he sees Lou smoking. And so that's another moment where they realize that they're more similar than they are, than maybe they want to admit. So there were little things like that. There was a shot of Will opening the fridge and there's nothing in the fridge except beer, and he says
Yeah.
like, "What do you eat?" But yeah, there were little things there, but for the most part, most of it made it in. We might have cut a line or two here, but for the most part, yeah, it's all in there.
Yeah. And it's, like this to jump this the hammer at home. There's the other part about it is that just because someone is gay doesn't mean that they like he's like it's like that's like that generational thing where like, okay, my son's gay, so he's different from me, but he's really not. That's just it's just one of those things that don't really matter, doesn't really matter. But of course it
Mhm.
matters to some in still in this time. But it's like, yeah, just he's just like me. He's not, you know what I mean? Like he just happens to like men over women, right? So that's the only
Yeah.
thing. But it has nothing
Mhm.
to do with who he is, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
Now, if only Lou could get to that point.
No, but I think he does as far, like he said, I think goes as far as he can, right? So being the
Yeah.
generation that he is, I'm not trying to give someone a pass, but
Oh, yeah.
yeah, listen, people are people, right? Like they're from different times. They from like listen, he's way better than he was back in the 1800s, right? So
Yes. Yeah.
right,
For
so there's
sure.
progress.
Yes.
Yeah, because if you look at it, like it's like people don't care, like they care, but it's the nobody really is matters. Nobody really cares as much. Maybe if they're transgender, that's a whole other subject now. But being gay or lesbian seems people don't care anymore, right? So
Yeah. I mean, that's the hope.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm being like, I'm
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
majority, right? So,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And 20 years ago, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't have said that.
Hmm.
So I think what I'm trying to say is that progress is progress, and that's where that character is, right? So,
Yes. Yeah. He's doing the best that he can. He's
yeah,
trying as hard as he can.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
So, okay, so then tell me about the sound design and like kind of putting the film together in post.
Yeah. Sound design was really fun, especially obviously, I think where it's most prominent is after Lou has been drinking and he goes out and he's hearing the coyote, um, and he's got the gun, which we had fun kind of planting little coyote uh, howls earlier in the film. Like in I think the first scene where Will shows up, you can hear one very kind of faintly in the background. Um, but yeah, that was where I know that I had the most fun is that scene. But yeah, Vanessa Lieberman was my sound designer, and she also kind of pitched to me when I pitched to her this idea, and so we just had a lot of fun using all the chicken noises, building this Texas environment, and then especially the scene with uh, Lou kind of losing it and shooting the chicken. Spoiler alert. Uh, you know what was going on inside his head, so we can get a little bit more in Lou's head in that scene as well.
So you got the film got completed, festival circuit. I hope it's doing well. So what's next for you?
I am working on a feature, and I've got a short film that I'm also working on. So just trying to work on those and get those going next, and we'll see what happens.
Are you from Los Angeles area originally?
Oh no, I'm from Alaska, so very
Oh,
different.
seriously?
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah, yeah. So a very different climate down here.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
In many ways, I guess, right?
yep, very different.
Was it a culture shock for you coming to Los Angeles?
Yes, I remember driving the U-Haul down here and
You drove,
then
so you drove through
thinking,
Canada down like
I
down.
I drove from Oregon. I lived in Oregon. I went to undergrad in Oregon. I
Okay.
lived in Portland for a year, and so I drove from Portland down. And yeah, I like Pacific Northwest was like a good stepping stone. But yeah, entering Los Angeles for the first time, I will never forget that. And how crazy California drivers are, and I will stand by that.
Yeah.
Y'all are a different breed. It's crazy. So
Because they're always in traffic. That's why they're pissed off.
that is true. I understand it.
Yeah. So okay, so you're staying, you're gonna stay there. You're not going back to Alaska.
No, yeah, I'm down here for the long haul. So see if I can stand the heat and the price of everything.
Yeah. And before we leave you, one of the fun questions we asked you on the blog interview is what film have you watched the most times of your life? And you said The Princess Bride, which you just
Yes.
graduated. So let's assume that you weren't. born when the movie came out.
Correct.
So how did you get involved in The Princess Bride?
My parents. My mother is a librarian, and so she reads all the time, and she had read The Princess Bride. Both my parents love the movie a lot. My dad is a pastor, and he did a wedding where he opens with marriage. Marriage is what brings us here together today. And we just always had it on at home, so it's definitely one that I can probably like quote the most. So that's why I would probably say I've seen it the most. But yeah, it was always on in my house. So
Okay, so what we learned here is that you're from Alaska.
yes.
You made an LGBTQ plus film. Your dad was a pastor, and your
Mm-hmm.
mom's a librarian.
Yes.
Okay,
Take with that what you will.
so it seems like you got some movies to make.
Uh, yeah, maybe I might have a few more uh raring to be told.
Yeah. So William Goldman is the writer of The Princess Bride. So people don't know he's a famous screenwriter. He wrote a couple famous books that every screenwriter should kind of read. But
They're
he this
somewhere
was
on
a
the they're
sorry.
back there. They're back there on my shelf right there
Oh,
actually.
there you go. Yeah. So
Yep.
you've read them already. So
Yes.
he but the funny thing is that people don't know that this like your mom's a librarian, you knew, but this was a book before it was a movie.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big passion of his, right? So William Goldman's.
Yes. No, I believe how it started was he asked his daughters like, what book should I write? And then one said something about a princess, one said something about a bride, and then he put it together. He's like, I'll make one called The Princess Bride. And then we
That's
got
that's
that.
that's how the story goes. That's he
Yeah.
said that he did say that in an interview that that's how he did. So
Yep.
but the film I watched it recently. It still holds up. I was watching the Andre the Giant documentary on HBO, so I went to watch the film for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Never watched it before in my life, and yeah, Rob Reiner right before Harry Met Sally. Yeah, the film
Yep.
holds up.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And oh yeah, I love it.
And yeah, it's really, but didn't like it's only a small budget movie, and it just has a shelf life forever. It just keeps going.
Yeah,
People
no,
do that.
it's incredible. A good story told well will last a long time. So
Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations on the success. I'd love to see your next short film. I think this film is very, like I said, it's loaded with nuance. When I see films like this, I'm like, okay, that person can make a feature film because basically it has that patience, has that tone and that kind of pace for a feature filmmaker. So I love to see you do a feature film. I think you're probably already ready to make one. Maybe you don't even believe that, but I think you are with this
well,
film because you
thank you.
really got to watch this film carefully to watch it. So hopefully, to all the festival directors out there, hopefully they're watching your film properly because it
Thank
should be
you.
getting into all the festivals you submit to.
Thank you very much.
That's my testimonial for your film.
Thank you.
And I believe it. All right. Congratulations. Let's talk again soon when you make your next film.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks.